Traditionally, you'd wear it for 7 days. It shouldn't. But I would tell you should wear it as long as you feel you want to be identified as a mourner. Okay? There's no one way to do that. So whatever feels right for you, that's what you should do. Okay? Are you ready? Baruch atah Adonai Dayan ha'emet, for hearts that are torn, we perform this act of kriya. Say amen. Great. And you can tear your ribbon. Okay, you're going to put your hands on the bottom and pull in opposite directions. Perfect. All right. Yeah, it's hard in the gloves. Do you want me wearing gloves? Is it okay? Okay. You guys can take your seats. You can go wherever you can be wherever you want to be seated. Thanks. Yeah, we're good. Good.
If I could have your attention, please. At this time, we're going to begin the service here in the chapel for Mrs. Lois K Witt. As we begin the service, I would ask if any of you have cell phones or any other noise-making devices, please turn them off at this time. Officiating the service here today is Rabbi Wendy Geffen from North Shore Congregation Israel in Glencoe. Thank you, Rabbi.
Each of us has a name. Each of us has a name given by God and given by our parents. Each of us has a name given by our stature and our smile and given by what we wear. Each of us has a name given by the mountains and given by our walls. Each of us has a name given by the stars and given by our friends. Each of us has a name given by our longing and given by our love. Each of us has a name given by our struggles and given by our work. Each of us has a name given by our celebrations and given by our family. Each of us has a name given by the sea and given by our death. Death has taken our beloved Lois. Filled with grief, we pray that her family and friends find comfort and consolation from community and from each other during these especially difficult times. For Lois's spirit and love that united so many in life and which death could never sever. For her companionship that we shared along life's path and which continues now through the tenderness of memory. For the gifts of her heart and mind that brought such joy and happiness and are now precious remembrances. For all these and more, we give our thanks to God. And so we turn to voices both ancient and new to help us as we journey through the valley of the shadow of death together. The 23rd Psalm. Adonai ro'i lo echsar, bino deshe yarbitzeni al me menuchot yinahaleni, nafshi yeshovev, yancheni b'ma'agleit tzedek lema'an shemo. You have the English words of the 23rd Psalm on the inside of the pamphlet you received when you came in. As a sign of our presence for those who are physically here with us right now, and for those of us who are joining with us on the internet, if you're familiar with the words, please do say them aloud with me at this time. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey. From childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength, or strength to weakness and often back again, from health to sickness and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage made stage by stage to life everlasting. We are all here together this morning to remember the incredibly memorable Lois Witt. Lois was the beloved daughter of Jerry and Lou, and then Irv, the most cherished sister of Bobby, devoted mother of Luann, Alan, and Kurt, grandmother of David, Melissa, Taylor, Tara, and Jaron, Karen, Kenny, and Amy, and the great-grandmother of Jade, Jet, Levi, Blake, Lucia, Logan, Mason, Jackson, and Rosie. She was the treasured aunt of Stacy and Paul, a respected community member, and a wonderful friend to many. Anyone who knew Lois knew she was an independent spirit, whose life was not always easy, but who nevertheless figured out ways to make the most out of it, and in doing so, blessed those whom she loved with a profound legacy that will no doubt endure, as it already has, in the generations of her family and all of those lucky enough to call her friend. And so, of course, we mourn Lois's death today, but we also come together to give thanks for her 90 years of life and all the parts of it in which we shared. Lois was born in Indianapolis in 1930, the first of Jerry and Lou's two daughters. Lois loved her parents and was particularly close with her father, really taking after her dad, in particular with his athleticism and active nature. Lois was very much a tomboy as a child, jumping off monkey bars and roofs and the like, riding horses. Lois and Bobby were also incredibly close as could be, really, through the entirety of their lives together. Lois helped look after Bobby after Lou died when both were young. They were partners in crime and otherwise, choosing to eat their food for dinner directly on the table at dinner time when Jerry wouldn't be home in time so as to avoid doing the dishes. And as they grew, they remained inseparable and truly were best friends. From radio scavenger hunt adventures to antiquing and buying art together, they walked the road of life with each other. In the 86 years they shared together, they never had an argument. Lois met Robert while at Sullivan High School. She attended the U of I for 1 year, but came home after and got engaged. They married in 1949, moved into their first apartment in Rogers Park while still being supported by Jerry as they really had nothing, and then made their way eventually to the apartment on Hollywood and Broadway, and after that to Skokie. Married for 35 years, Lois always cared for and about Robert. She worked with him in his business even after they were no longer married, and in later years, always wanted to make sure that he was okay. Lois was, not surprisingly, a devoted mother. She was very involved in her children's lives, taking on the roles of Cub Scout and Girl Scout leader, room mother, booster club volunteer, what have you, along the way. She always made sure the kids did what they had to do. Lois raised her children with high expectations, with manners, with pride in how they presented themselves, and taught them about responsibility and accountability in many standard and also creative ways. She was strict but also fun, protective and loving too. From teaching her children to drive to saving everything they ever made or wrote, Lois was dedicated to each of her children and to her role as their mother, something she always cherished. And Lois was also a wonderful grandmother and great-grandmother. As nanny and later Gigi, Lois cultivated countless wonderful memories with them all, from special overnights at her house with a Mickey Mouse dispenser, to trips to Disney, to special birthday lunches or dinners at the restaurant of their choice. Lois's grandchildren and great-grandchildren shared close and meaningful relationships with her that truly were a blessing in each of their lives. Lois was an independent spirit who lived the motto that you can do whatever you want to do in life if you set your mind to it. Things were not always easy. She worked hard and figured out ways to make things work and do her part. But she never let this reality limit her or hold her back. She found ways to stand on her own 2 feet and live and love life. She loved to gather everyone and entertain. She threw the best annual holiday party for 25 years, doing all the cooking, baking, and serving herself. She held an annual 4th of July picnic with egg toss, water balloons, and all. She had many friends whom she cultivated over different parts of her life and with whom she loved to spend time. She traveled all over, across the country, across the world, with friends and family, and also on her own. She became an adult bat mitzvah later in life, something about which she was so very proud. She even gave herself her own middle name when she didn't have one. She truly lived up to her license plate title, Gutsy Lady, in every sense of the word. On a personal note, I'd just like to share how lucky I feel to have known Lois. She was one of the very first people I met at NSCI over 18 years ago. At the time, she was very active in our social justice group, but she was never interested in the talking parts of the meeting. She always just wanted to get out there and do the good work and the right thing to do to help make a difference in people's lives. She had so many friends at our synagogue, and I loved seeing her with her friends from the community, many of them gutsy ladies themselves, and have missed her and many of those friends over these last few years. Indeed, we will remember Lois for so many of the unique qualities and traits that made her the one-of-a-kind person she was. We'll remember her for her love of hot dogs and the color purple everywhere, for how she let her boys and their friends write on the ceiling of their bedroom in magic marker when they were children, but also how she threw their clothes out if they left them on the floor. We'll remember her for golf and the Lakeshore Gun Club, and for her chocolate chip cookies, for how she would help anyone who needed it, and for how she was there for those who needed her. In Judaism, we teach that we carry our loved ones with us by remembering their lives and doing our best to live our lives influenced by the lessons they taught us. For Lois, there are undoubtedly countless lessons that each person she touched will carry with them. But perhaps above all the others, Lois's independence and sense of adventure, her generosity of spirit, her loyalty and love, these will prove her most enduring gifts. And we pray that it will be these that undoubtedly live and grow for generations to come. Zichrona livracha, may her memory be a blessing. Amen. At this time, we'll have the opportunity to hear, I believe, from Luann and from Kurt, who both would like to speak. I don't know if you want to come up together or separately. Luann, you want to come first?
She's a leader.
Okay. Don't worry, take your time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, like the rabbi said, my mother was spectacular. She was heartfelt and loving. She was a wonderful grandmother, great-grandmother. She knitted beautiful baby blankets for all of her grandchildren and great-grandchildren, took them to the parks, Disney World, the beach, allowed them to play dress up in her shoes, let them drive her car while they were learning to drive. She was a great cook and baker, known for her fabulous parties. Mom did not like dogs, but we had two. Trump, one of the dogs that we had, she told us to take him for a walk. Alan and I take him for a walk one day. I think we were all of 6 and 4. He was bigger than my mother, so you know how big of a dog he was, and we walked him past the football field across the street from our house, which was the high school. And he got away from us, ran into the football field, and proceeded to try and take the football away. And over the loudspeaker, you heard, "Will the owner of this dog please come and get the dog?" Well, Al and I flew home, went and got Mom, and she had to run in there and get the dog and get the football away from him. She was very strict and, of course, made us make our beds and clean our rooms before you could go anywhere on a weekend. Drawers had to be orderly, or else they got tossed on the floor for you to clean them up, and that was usually Alan. My best friend Barbie and I were the only 2 girls in junior high that still had to wear saddle shoes through 8th grade. Our moms were sure that they were better for our feet, so she refused to let me wear anything else. She refused to let me wear nylons to high school until I got into high school, only I thought I tricked her. Walked down the alley, took the lousy Bobby socks off, and went to school with no socks, only to be caught one day coming down the alley. And she said, "If you're not going to wear Bobby socks, at least wear nylons." Mom was this one that stood up for her children, even if she knew we were wrong. She was the judge and jury of our lives. She was the one who knew how to make things better. I got a bucket of water and a rag to wash the floors when things were hard. She called it wash therapy. She let Alan and I know that Kurt was our little brother, but not someone you charged a nickel to see. That was Alan's idea. When I was a kid, I remember her going to bed with toilet paper wrapped around her newly coiffured hair. It was supposed to keep her hair in place and keep it for lasting for a week. I remember her taking a nap on the living room floor during the hot summers, and she said it was always cooler down there. She was the mom who took me to New York and Boston, just the 2 of us, sightseeing and eating the best restaurants, and eating the best street food. She was my brownie leader, my cheerleader, my room mother. She was there for every cut, bruise, and heartache I ever had. She was a strong woman and mother who showed me how to stay strong through the worst of my times. She used to celebrate all the little things and the big things in your life, something she always did. Mom, I will always love you and will miss you. Rest well. I know you're with Nanny and Papa Lou, and Bobby saw you standing with them, smiling and happy, and that's how I want to remember you. Love you forever.
For those of you who didn't hear that, I was just given the instructions to do the funny part, which I do, and I will. First we start with classes. All right. Thanks, Lucy. That was heartfelt for sure. So, of course, we want to thank you all for coming, and those of you who are watching for doing that as well. We appreciate the support. Each of us have a special place in our hearts for my mom, for Nanny, for Gigi, your sister, your aunt, or your friend. You're with us today because she holds a special place in her heart for you. And no matter how hard or how tough Alzheimer's and dementia became and invaded her, she remembered more about the loves in you and in her heart for you. She never forgot that. Those of us who were raised under my mom's strong rules, as the man was suggesting, in front of her pointy shoes at the kitchen table, grooming tools, that's what they were known as, her and her genetic disorders, actually our genetic disorders for cleanliness, her soft, gentle hands, super warm heart, and love, remember much more about her than just that. From Mom, we learned how to treat and respect people, spouses, children, friends, and all the people we met along the way. Oh, and we learned how to clean. That is just one of those disorders we have. In my family, everybody knows about it. One of my friends said in a note to me recently, after Mom had passed, said, "Kurt, I'm so sorry to hear about Lois. Your mom was always awesome, or awful, depending on the week." And it is so very true. And I told him I wouldn't tell anybody who he is. But when I first read that, I was kind of like offended for a second. And then I thought, no, it's so totally true that she was absolutely that. She was wonderful. And then there were those days. So, where am I? So, Mom was just about that. She loved her kids. She loved raising her kids with all her heart, even at times when she chased Alan and me around the Skokie condo with her stiletto shoes. Kind of slutty that she had stiletto shoes, but we won't go there. With hopes that she'd be able to land one hit of those high heels upon either one of us. And never did, but we laughed. Alan and I laughed and laughed and laughed as we ran for our safety. And she laughed too. And it never happened because everybody was just cracking up. It was a bunch of fun. I know Alan will never forget it, and I will never forget it. Mom, in grooming me to be a gentleman, worked with me to understand that potty mouth was not acceptable. And I had to learn the hard way because I had a tough time with that. And I learned to enjoy the fine taste of a bar of Dial soap while she washed my mouth out, while she tried those bad words and take them out of my mouth. We laughed together about that too. She taught me how to cook, swing golf clubs, get the guts up to get on the giant slide at Phil's Beach, shoot guns for skeet and trap, have manners, how to treat women, open doors, car doors, tell them you love everything they cooked, even if you don't. Great advice for life with those from Venus and those from Mars. The pointy shoes, because you gotta wonder what that's about. But as we sat around the dining room table or the dinner table, we weren't allowed to, part of our manner treatment, put our elbows on the table or our hands. And if we did, those shoes just came at you from underneath the table, and my shins still have scars from them because it was just hysterical. You know, Alan and I would sit there and you hear, we both look at each other to see who it was that got hit, and it was 99% of the time it was me. So if you forgot the rules, that was the instant reminder. In a short amount of time after my becoming involved in dating with Julie, she always said, God, who could raise somebody with all these manners? Did such a great job. And I love the idea that that's how that all happened. And it finally sunk into me 40 years later why that was important to her, to my mom. And I thank her, and I thank Julie very much for all the kindness and love that she gave my mom and all the intention that she provided her. She spent time talking about the books that mom was reading, even though mom didn't always remember the book she was reading, but she worked with it. And she talked about places to travel and, of course, fashion. And so I thank you very much. My mom had her love for Vienna hot dogs, and she shared that with me to the point where I ended up managing the Corner Hut hot dog store, or hot dog stand. And she taught me to put my clothes away and put them away in order. As Luann said, she was very, very organized about that. And so that's where the cleaning thing started. Mom had this cleaning thing, I called it earlier, our genetic disorder for cleanliness. Everything must be clean, must be in its place. And as an example, if my jeans were on the floor in my bedroom, and if I was not in the process of picking them up and putting them away, and maybe not even around, she would pick them up. And I would go, oh, that's awesome, super nice, right? Not really. It took a pair of jeans on the floor to incite that, or awful, depending on the weak attitude. And boy, did I get it, and I got it a lot. Demonstrated by those jeans magically disappearing. I remember coming home one day from work at the hot dog stand to find all my clothes that were resting comfortably on the floor when I left for work had been picked up. I thought, oh, that's pretty nice. Mom picked them up and put them away. Nope, after looking around for them, up and down everywhere in the house, I had a short conversation with her, and she said, oh, you left them out, so I threw them out. I went, whoa. It's like, okay, no problem, buy me new ones. And she said, oh, no, you work. You go buy your own new clothes. And be careful about that, because they're really expensive. I'm like, oh boy. So what I learned out of that lesson was, actually one of my first business lessons was to find our janitor, Pete, in the buildings that we lived in. I know, right? You remember that? Of course. And figured out a way to work a deal with him to find my clothes in the garbage, and he would pull them out. I would pay him. The look on my mom's face when I came home with those jeans on one day was like priceless. She just turned around and was like, how did you get those? I threw them away. I worked it out, worked out a deal. It was a good way to work. So mom never seemed to really go after Luann like she did Alan and I, at least from what I can remember. And Alan, I'm sure you'll agree with that. But, you know, as we sit here today and I see Luann today, and I've known her obviously for my whole life, we know that she's as close to the best and most perfect daughter anyone could ever want. And I want to share a huge thank you to Luann from me and from Mom. You did everything right for her, especially in her last years, and for Dad too. Mom loved you for all you did. Nail appointments, doctor appointments, hair appointments, finding ways to include her in every family event, plays, lunches, dinners, etc. You did everything. You were an incredible daughter, and an incredible role model for all daughters and all sons and all families, and I thank you. Fast cars and guns. This kind of gets a little fun and strange. You gotta go, whoa. So fast cars, my mom loved them. She loved having her convertible, her rag tops, and she had a hankering for guns. I have no idea, but she carried them with her almost to her last day. The afternoon of receiving my driver's license, which my mom took me to, and she took all of us to, I have to bet, because my dad did not do that. We celebrated with the fact that I got my license, and we drove downtown. Because at the time, I guess, the only place to get your driver's license was on Elston Avenue, if that's the right street. And so we drove downtown, and she, exit the highway. I'm driving, like first time ever, got a driver's license. She says, take a right here. I took a right there, and it was the wrong way on a one-way in downtown Chicago. I'm freaking out. She's like, no big deal. We'll go out for lobster. So it was kind of a fun evening. The night of the Stormy Daniels interview on 60 Minutes, I took Mom to Carson's because she loved ribs, and as did I and do. And I got her out of her car, my car, and with her walker, and readied her to get into the building. And I said, where are your keys? She goes, I don't know, I can't find them. I said, well, they're usually on your wrist. And she said, don't have them on my wrist. They might be in the little bag on my walker. So I reach into that little bag on the walker and I pull out a revolver. I'm like, I thought the hankering for guns was that she belonged to the Lakeshore Gun Club, and I went shooting with her, and the guns were all from her father, and it just continued on, and it's just like, what are you doing with this here? She was fun. So, Mom taught me the importance of work, loved me even when I couldn't hear, worked with me to improve my spelling skills, taught me how to ice skate with a pillow wrapped around my butt because I couldn't and I always fell. And she shared the love for fresh cut French fries, taught me to swim, how to lick an ice cream cone from Cock Robin's the very best way. And a great place, many of you don't know it, but they had square ice cream. It was just awesome. And to enjoy the thrill of candy as an appetizer. Before I end my comments, I want to recognize a few things of my mom's that were her favorite, and it's just a really nice, long, huge list, so deal with it. It's really not. The Wizard of Oz and all the movies of that era, mustache cups and antiques. I broke many. Chocolate chip cookies, she was fabulous at making them. Mustang convertibles, had a couple of them. As you heard, her license plate was Gutsy Lady. Her favorite colors were purple, purple, and more purple. And her entire last place of residence, every part of it was purple. Ceiling, floor, you name it. It was her favorite color, made her happy, that was great. She always dressed to the T, she always had fabulous fingernails. And when I got into the business, people who I followed with my mom and my dad would say to me, oh my gosh, your dad always wore these great jackets. Your mom always had the best fingernails. I'm like, oh, really? You guys think about my mom about her fingernails? I thought that was kind of interesting. Cooking and entertaining, the holiday parties and the picnics, taking the kids to Disney, going to Nippersink with her friends, golfing with anybody and me. And I love the fact that my mom, I think I was in 4th grade, went golfing for the first time, and I couldn't hit the ball far. So she would just say, just go up there, grab it, and throw it. And like, that's a good way to do it, It worked, encouraged me to continue on. She loved living in the John Hancock. Her Uncle Sam lived there at the same time. Mahjong with her friends, building doll houses, allowing her friends, our friends, Alan and mine, to write on the ceiling in magic marker. You kind of heard that. Maybe later you'll see pictures of that. That was pretty cool. Had a number of friends on Facebook post things about that. Like, oh my God, I remember doing that. Your mom was so cool. Like, oh. Ice skating with me with the pillow on my butt, fashion trending, setting colors in our condos, volunteering for Booster Clubs and Cub Scouts and Girl Scouts, and the love for all of you here and at home, and those of us who aren't with us anymore, which include John, Aunt Babe, Uncle Sam, her parents, Jerry, Lou, and Irv, and countless others. In all, my mom was way more awesome than not. I loved her, I love her, and she has a permanent place in my heart that will never leave me, and I suspect it will never leave you either. Thank you guys for coming.
Mine's much shorter. One of the many things that Mom taught us at a young age was to value remembering the good that people did for us. It's a lesson that's important today, as it was when she taught us 50 or 60 years ago. It is a lesson that allows us to reminisce with smiles on our faces when we think about how hard our mother worked and how good she did and all the good she did for us. As you heard, mother, brownie leader, Cub Scout troop leader, PTA officer, refreshment stand foreman at the football games, room mother, teacher, tutor, warden. She was in charge of making sure that when Kurt and I got grounded, that we stayed in our rooms as we were supposed to. Now, of course, Luann never got grounded. The goody two-shoes in the family just never got grounded, and harshly because she always blamed Kurt and I. So, she wasn't all that great, but, Mom was a warden. She was a repairman when we broke things, an emergency room triage specialist, and an ambulance driver each time we needed stitches or more. Scientist. She knew Bushman, the gorilla from Lincoln Park Zoo. She, in 1950s, she was into computers before most of the world knew that computers even existed. She loved museums, and with Aunt Bobby taking us to museums on a regular basis to understand science and math. The only girl in her honors trigonometry class in school. She loved to solve problems in her head. Cook, baker, caterer. With Aunt Bobby, they made the famous pink and green bread that went in appetizers. Apple picker, what fun. Apple pie baker, applesauce maker, rhubarb pie extraordinaire, and of course, as you've heard, chocolate chip cookies. Taught us about selling. She was a great salesperson. It was know your product and all the specs. Know your customer and their family, and know your competition. She did it all. She also taught us the importance of friends, holding on to those from childhood, like Betty Kaplan, and those that we spend most holidays with, like the Margulies and Biermans and Miners, and most important and most valuable friend, her sister, Aunt Bobby. It is these things and many more that we remember, we pass on to future generations, and that will always make us smile. Thanks, Mom, for bringing us so much good into early life. Thanks.
Anyone else wanting to speak?
Thank you for your beautiful, heartfelt, humorous, touching, and true recollections of Lois. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember her. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember her. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of the sun, we will remember her. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember her. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember her. In the beginning of the year, and when it ends, we will remember her. When we are weary and in need of strength, we will remember her. When we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember her. So long as we live, she too will live, for she is now a part of us as we remember her. Would you please rise? El Malay Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamatzeh Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, Im Kedoshimu Tohorim Kezohar Harakia Mazirim, Et Yakirenu Shel Chale Olama. Baal Harachamim, Yastireha Beseter Kenafav Leolamim, Bitzur Bitzur Chaim Et Nishmata, Adonai Hu Nachalata, V'tanuach B'shalom Al Mishkava V'nomar. Amen. May the source of life, the fountain of all being, open our hearts to compassion and our eyes to wisdom, that we might glimpse in perfect peace the way of all things. May Lois's memory be for us a blessing, and may we never let the light of her love grow dim in our hearts. May we remember all her worthy and righteous deeds, that her memory be forever bound up in the bond of life. May Lois's death awaken us to this truth. that the bond of love we shared and share will never be severed in sorrow. May she always rest in peace. We say together, Amen. We'll turn now to our closing prayer, the words of Kaddish, Mourner's Kaddish. You have them on the pamphlet you received, I believe, on the very back. Just a few words about this prayer. The Mourner's Kaddish is a prayer we say when we are grieving, when we are mourning, but it's not a prayer about death. It's a prayer about gratitude in life. And that gives us a little bit of insight into how we might move forward, which is to remember Lois's life with gratitude, to be thankful for everything she gave to us, to commit to carrying it on as we walk forward. The prayer is actually not in Hebrew, it's in Aramaic, which means it's a little trickier to say. So if you know the words, I'm going to read them, but a little bit of a slower pace, just so everyone who wants to say them can. But a secret about this prayer is as long as you say Amen at the end, you are credited as if you have said the entire prayer. So wherever you are in comfort with this prayer, hopefully there is one way or another that you'll be able to affirm its meaning. For those who'd like, please join with me. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divara chirute v'yamlich malchute, b'chayechon u'vyomechon u'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'almei almaya. Yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitromam, v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shemei dekudsha brichu, le'ela min kal birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma, v'imru Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim, aleinu v'al kal Yisrael, v'imru Amen. Osei shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru. Amen. May Lois's memory abide as a blessing. We say together one last time, Amen.
Please be seated. This concludes the service here in our chapel. The interment will be private. Also, due to the ongoing public health concerns, there will be no public Shiva. For those of you in attendance, I want to call to your attention in the inside portion of the funeral service folder, the family has asked that memorial contributions in Mrs. Witt's name be made to the Alzheimer's Association, and that information is provided. For those of you watching online, the information is available on our website that you're on right now. At this time, I would ask everyone to please rise as the family is escorted from the chapel. Thank you.